So when you come back, do you come back as CEO, running company, or do you kind of try to, hey, I was sitting in your seat, and here's where here's what your short-term plan needs to be. Here's what your intention, your purpose needs to be, or someplace else. Like, how do you connect with these kids?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll be honest, it's been years since I've been back to talk to the wrestling team, and shout out to the wrestling team. They are top notch right now. Like I follow them. Last year, you know, my high school record was broken by one of the seniors. Like they just have an amazing team. But when I go back, honestly, one of the things that I've learned over the years is to try to connect with individuals. And what I try to do is try to tell them that I was in your shoes not too long ago, right? So I think if you try to go to them as I'm a CEO, you're almost so distant away from what they're living that they may not be able to connect. But when I can tell them, hey, I grew up by Swayze's. I went to the boys club. I played at St. Joe's, you know, I did these things that you're doing today. You know, I went to Tilton, I went to Constantino, I think they kind of relate a little bit more. So when I go back and I have a chance to speak with young kids, I talk a little bit more about my experience. And yes, I do talk about where I am today, but I do kind of make sure people understand that it's because of the experiences I had as a young kid and the mentors that I had and the colleagues and the teammates that I had that I'm where I am today.
In my last question, maybe less CEO.
Hey, you're not done yet? I thought you were done.
I got 3-4 more, not close to me. He's gonna get 3 more glasses of wine deep before I'm done. No, my last question is really not more CEO, more of, you just have so many accomplishments, Dave. What's that one thing you mentioned? You mentioned you have those rejection letters, but I'm sure there's something that maybe balances that you're like, that was something that. And I'll tell you what I saw most recently when we were voting in the spring. I voted at the high school. I saw your name up there, man, and I'm like, that's cool. That's cool to have your name up there.
Yeah.
Up in big letters. So what's that one thing for you?
Yeah. Look, you know, I think when I look back, when I'm old, right? When I'm old and looking back, I think from accomplishments from my youth is probably winning that state title as a senior, but it's really not so much winning the title as much as losing my sophomore year, coming in second, coming in third, my junior year, and then finally winning it. My college career, just so you know, I had the similar experience where I came in second 3 years in a row before winning a title. And so I've had those things that I'll never forget. But I have to tell you, from a career standpoint, there's 2 things that I'll never forget. And this pandemic is actually one of them. I don't think from a professional standpoint, I'm not going out on a limb at saying that almost there's a huge amount of people that will never forget what we experienced. And for me trying to navigate, think about it, man. I just started as a CEO of a company, you know, and less than a year later, we're in a pandemic, right? And I'm trying to navigate this because you're a startup, right? You're kind of crunched for cash and this and that, and you're trying to stay open, you're trying to stay afloat, and I'm trying to keep people employed. And you know, when you're leading a company and you have, you know, many employees depending on you and your leadership, it's something that I really take to heart. And so I think navigating through this pandemic is probably one of my biggest accomplishments. And the other thing I will tell you is my biggest thing that I keep looking back on is a deal we didn't do. And so I think a lot of times people take pride in deals they did, but there was a deal that we did not do right before the pandemic. And it's because it just got so overwhelming. And you know, it just, they wanted X, Y, and Z, and we were desperate for a deal, and we were trying to accommodate them, but it got to the point where I had to look at my partners and say, guys, as much of a big fish and a big whale as this is, we can't do this. And I got to tell you, that was tough to walk away from all that money, but I'm looking back on it now, Brian, and I'm super excited that we did that. And I got to tell you, I think that's probably something that I'm going to look back on many years from now. I'm going to be very happy about.
Give us an odd experience that you have experienced while traveling.
Look, I mean, there's just
the car, plane, destination.
I mean, there's been crazy experiences for me. I mean, I've traveled abroad to Europe, you know, a couple times, and things have gone a little crazy in the flights, and I will tell you one story that is a little crazy. But I was supposed to meet a good buddy of mine, one of my best friends from college, in an island called Margarita Island. And it's off the coast of Venezuela. And we said, I live in Miami. He lives in Spain. He was going to go party there. And I'm like, let me go party with you, right? I was young and this and that. I literally land in Caracas for Venezuela right before they closed the entire airport because the flooding in the city was so severe and the rainstorms were so severe that they literally closed down the entire city airport. So I'm left in the airport, inside the airport. I have to sleep there for 2 days in the airport, trying to eat whatever food they're handing out. And on the second day, they start handing out basically a sheet of paper. And they said, write your name, your sex, and your age. And I'm literally at the time 24 years old. I'm a male. There's no way I'm making it on the next plane because they're like, look, a plane's going to leave. And I'm like, every old person, mother, child is going to get out of there. So I took my luggage and I start walking down the airport just to get out of the mayhem that was happening because people were getting desperate. I couldn't leave the airport because the military was there preventing the poor villagers from going in to seek shelter. So they wouldn't let us out and they wouldn't let them in. So I literally turn a corner to the domestic wing and there's a line to get on a plane and a man saying, board the plane now. We'll take your tickets when we get there. We need to leave now because the opening with the weather was only going to be about 30 minutes. I jumped on that plane without knowing where it was going. Really? I was the last person on the plane. I literally was the last person on the plane. I looked at the first available seat and I sat down next to this kid. And I sat down and all I was worried about was taking off because I thought they were going to come and say, sir, you don't belong on this flight. So I literally try to play it off. I'm like, yeah, this and this. As soon as we took off, I look over at the kid. I'm like, hey, where are we going? And he goes to me and he goes, we're going to Valencia. Valencia is a city in Spain. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to Spain? This guy, I go, we're going to Spain. He goes, no, dude, there's a Valencia, Venezuela that's 30 minutes away. Jesus. So I literally take a 30-minute flight to Valencia, Venezuela with this guy. He's studying abroad. He's from Venezuela. He has a reggae brand. He has a reggae band that he started in California, and he's continuing with his friends in Venezuela. Guess who hooked me up for the next 5 days at his house with his family? So I stayed with him for 5 days.
Wow.
Experienced, and like that to me was one of the craziest travel experiences I ever had.
He knew you had something in your pockets there.
And by the way, the power of knowing people and the power of stories, like I got to tell you, I have stories ad nauseum, but one of the interesting things is 25 years later, me and my wife are entertaining some people in the backyard, so happen to be Venezuelans. And sure enough, my wife is like, Dave, tell the story. And I tell the story. Guess where they're from? Valencia. And guess who was his best friend?
Wow.
No. Guy. Oh my
God. We had him. We picked up on the phone. We got him on the phone. Wow. We reconnected. Holy I'm on Facebook with him now. And his name is Sebastian Ramos. And we're friends now on Facebook, but we reconnected after 20 plus years after me telling the story of someone who just so happens to be his best friend back in Venezuela.
What a small world.
Oh my God.
We didn't introduce your family. You're welcome. Your wife, you mentioned you have two kids?
That's right. I have 2 kids, Milan and Joaquin is going to turn 3 months. So
wow,
Milan's 3 years old. So yeah, I got a little bit of a late start. I like to think that I was very much more career focused, I guess, in my early years, but it's been awesome. It's been awesome being a dad. My wife is Carolina, and she was born in New York City, raised in Miami, family's from Colombia. My family, as you guys may or may not know, is from the Dominican Republic. We're obviously, I'm first generation, like many people in Haverhill, either first, second, or third generation, right? So yeah.
Where'd you come in from DR? Where in DR were you from?
My family's from Santo Domingo, and also a city called La Vega.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know DR?
I do.
He's been there a couple times there. Yeah. Just quick in and out.
Yeah. I've been there a few times.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a kid that used to actually, when I was in the car business for years, like he was from La Vega. Yeah. But yeah, I traveled across that country. It's beautiful, man.
You did a lot of hiking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I look, I'm a big believer in, if you spend enough time talking to people, you're gonna find a connection, right? And I guarantee you that, if you guys ever decide to have me on, we'll find more and more connections. But
Oh yeah.
to tell you something real quick, my wife and I, after dating only a couple months, I tell her, hey, look, I'm gonna go with a buddy. We were gonna go out to Iceland. And I stopped in New York to visit my father and my sisters, and I'm having dinner with them. And then they're like, hey, so what's up with the dating scene? I'm like, look, I'm dating this girl. I really like her. She's Colombian, this and that. I'm like, hey, if you guys don't mind, let me take a picture with us and send it to her. And I sent her a picture of me and my two sisters and my dad. And I go, hey, here are my sisters, Yanis, Lisette, and my dad. And she goes, Yanis is not your sister. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this girl's going to end up being one of these psychos, right? Like, it's too bad.
Yeah.
My now wife literally knew my sister because she used to travel up to New York and stay with my sister years and years ago before I ever met my wife.
Oh, jeez.
So
that's talk about small world. That's
anyway, man, it's a small world out there.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty unique.
Look, and I think you guys have those stories, right? I mean, look, Brian, you said that you met somebody at a conference from Haverhill and stuff like so. Look, you spend enough time talking to people. I think you find these commonalities or these common stories. And if you really start spending time and drinking some wine, you start saying, holy shit, I might know that person.
Well, there's a big difference. Brian's not really a big people person. He likes to, if he sent you a text message today, he sent me a text message today of like this house in Iceland by itself. And that's where he wants to live.
Beautiful house. It was a beautiful plot of land, David. Nobody around for miles.
Nobody.
I think the talking to you, man, like the one thing it seemed like, yeah, you've had like a lot of mentorship and people helping you to grow up, but it seemed like you had something inside of you since you were younger that just kind of drove you. And I don't think do you think those things are just kind of like, you just organically grow, or is it something that's just kind of,
Look, man, I've thought about that a lot, and I have to be honest, like, I was never the best at almost anything I did. Like, I guess that's where drive comes in. Like, people think, but even in terms of drive, I think it's like where preparation, right? What's luck, right? Where preparation meets opportunity. I'm a strong believer in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never felt that I was the smartest around, but I got to tell you, I always felt 1000% confident that I will outwork anybody. Right. And so if it would ever came down to working hard, I definitely felt very, very confident that I could probably get there. It may take me a little bit longer, but I'll eventually get there. Right. Yeah. And I've been very fortunate at having, between the coaches and the mentors and the teammates, all of these people pushing me, right? Like my teammates pushing me, my coaches literally giving up their weekends and coming out and saying, hey man, I believe in you. Let's go work out. Let's go do this and let's do this. And my teachers, staying with me, they had they raised money for me. Constantino raised money for me. I'll never forget this. When I went out to the national tournament as a high school senior, Constantino had a David Leonardo day where they like literally raised money to help send me to the national tournament.
And then I had a Brian Nazarian day.
Right.
Yeah, they did. They were trying to get you out of the school.
Right.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I don't know, man. Like
he was a Charger, man. Chargers.
I think those days and those are things.
That's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah, man. Those are things that I'll never forget, right? Coach Shanahan. You remember Peter Shanahan, right?
I do.
Yeah, man. Like, so anyway, we could go on forever, but those are things that I'll never forget.
What do you think is one of the I think I already know the answer because you've mentioned it a couple of times, but for businesses or franchisees, what do you think one of the number one reasons for failure is?
If I can give anyone suggestion, know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think the people who have been extremely successful, for anybody who tells you that they've done it on their own, they're lying to you. They may not be willing to recognize the other people that have helped them get there, but they've had help in some way or another. Yeah. And it's about you capitalizing on that assistance. So I would tell any business owner, do what you do really, really well and understand what you don't do well and seek help in that area. And that is literally how you grow a business. Now, I'll tell you something else. If you want to grow a very, very, very big business, and you're not just happy being a 1-unit mom and pop owner, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being a mom and pop owner. This country, literally this country is where it's at today because of mom and pop owners. But if you ever decide that you want to go to that second, third, fourth, fifth location of whatever it is you want, you need to be comfortable with delegating work.
Yeah.
You're not good. If you're a micromanager, you gotta probably reconsider whether you're made for opening multiple locations.
You're right about that.
That's my, I don't know if you guys agree. Sounds like you do. Sounds like you
No,
agree.
I do. I agree with you, because to be a true leader, you have to delegate, right? Because if you do it all yourself, it's going to be failure completely, because you have to trust other people.
Well, so like when Derek goes in the office in the morning,
Yes.
take it. Starts.
Yeah, I just point fingers. I don't even say anything.
This is just getting his breakfast.
It wasn't this a couple weeks ago. Brett, you were out. There was an episode you guys did before you had your first before you had your first guest. Brett was out. You know, you had to delegate to these guys and say, you guys got to hold the fort. Well,
I know.
I'm
always holding it down.
And it was a better
Actually, that episode is our highest rated one. So
yeah.
There's a reason why. Big Mouth wasn't here.
So,
but do you think the people part too, like you said, managing people, and I thought that was a huge point that, for business owners and it just employees and treating them right. I think that's,
I mean, that's another thing. All right. It's managing people. You get to a point where my job right now as CEO, honestly, is making sure people are in the right position and making sure I get out of their way. My job is literally to ask the right questions, right? Ask the right questions, and let them do their work. I mean, the worst thing you could have, and listen, I've been fired from jobs, right? I don't think that my trajectory to get here has been a steady rise. It's been with hiccups. It's been with that. I've been fired from jobs because I've been hired for purposes. If you hire someone with a great pedigree, don't sit them down and then tell them what you want them to do, right? Like if you need somebody and they're experienced in a certain craft, teach them your business, tell them that, and then let them go and let them know understand they're going to make mistakes, provide them support, let them know what I can do to support you, let them, encourage them, talk about the vision. That's my job, right? That's my job. And literally making sure that my employees have everything they need to grow. So now I have 4 or 5 employees that don't understand franchising. I've literally brought them on from the bottom and I'm teaching them franchising. My job is to introduce them to people in franchising. Hey, meet this guy in marketing in franchising. Hey, why don't you start the certified franchise executive program where you can 2 years, 3 years, you can literally become a certified franchise executive. Hey, let me introduce you to this person because we're doing the same thing. They did that 2 years ago when I was there. Go talk to them. I don't know. That's what I think as a leader, my job is to do.
That's awesome feedback.